why government benefits from sharing data, right? I want you to think back at the anecdote I told you, that if you are going against the grain, if you are doing something that is seemingly insane, you have to be able to convince them, right? You have to explain to them why there's benefit for them, why they should bother with this open data concept. And for governments, it's not just that citizens can use the data, but it's also that they can become better governments, right? 2 points. The first one is perhaps the most obvious one, is public participation. If you're a civil servant, you might sometimes forget, but it means to serve the people, right? And what better way to serve the people than to have a finger on the pulse, to have direct ways of communicating with the citizens and figure out what they need, what their concerns are. This is one of the applications. It's called See, Click, Fix. It tells you what it does. It's a tool that citizens can use when they spot that something is wrong with their environment. They can see it, they can click on it, they can click on it on the camera, and they can report it. So maybe a neon sign has fallen off on the streets of Hong Kong, and you want that cleaned up, or there's a pothole in the road that you want fixed. This is one of the tools that allows you to feed back to government, right? It allows you to be the eyes and the ears of government in a non-creepy way. Okay, there's another tool. This is a great, fantastic tool. There's so much to do with this tool that I beg for you to look into it. But the only thing I want to point out now is that it has that little box in the middle there that has the pop vox, right? It's legislation that's under development, but here people can vote on it. If they care about the legislation, they can express whether they think that this legislation is actually a good idea or not, right? But if there's really just one thing that I wish governments would buy into, that they would understand, right, is that if sharing is caring, they shouldn't just share for the sake of their citizens, right? They should also share for the sake of themselves. That if they open up the data sets for the public, they can also make use of it themselves, right? If you talk to any government official and you talk about them about cross-departmental projects, they're like, whoa, not going there. It's bureaucratic hell. It'll slow down. It'll take 2 months even just to get the data in order to come up with a decision, right? But if government was able to build an open data commons for the government, they could draw on it, just like we draw, in the Netherlands, we draw on the notes that we've all shared, and we can permeate every level of government, all the actors in government, and they can all draw on the data that others have provided, right? Governments, they fear being tracked, just like people fear being tracked, right? But people have better reasons to fear being tracked than governments. I don't think that government officials should fear that they are tracked, right? If they fear that their policy is broken, that their policy isn't working, then they should simply fix it, right? If they see the metrics, if we can see the metrics that their policy isn't working, we are reasonable people. We won't immediately say that they should release office, right? We'll ask them, why don't you just improve it? Why don't you just fix it, right? But it's only when they open up the data, when they show us the metrics of what they are doing, that we can hold them accountable for what they are doing. And it's only then when all our incentives are aligned, when both government officials and citizens are looking at those metrics and seeing like, hey, this is the way forward, and you're actually doing a good job at it, and we can trust you to do a good job of it because here we have the metrics. I think that's when we finally will have a truly efficient and an effective government. And that's really the big buy-in for government to have with open data. This app here is called GovStat. So some local governments, they use this app, and they help it to track their performance. They set goals, so increase kindergarten readiness by 2017 by 15%. So it's not just a hollow promise anymore, right? It's not just an election promise. There are actually metrics that have to go into what it means to be kindergarten ready, right? If you define those metrics, then both government officials and us as citizens, we can monitor and see whether they're making progress. We can see whether things are going well. And you know what? If things aren't going well, you change it. If things are going well, you just do more of the same. It's really that simple. They can really use this tool. Another great idea is that government doesn't have to do all the work anymore. Right? This is a great example of that. This prescription analytics. So prescriptions is when you get medication. Right? Medications, they are patent encumbered, which means that a lot of the medication that you get will have a brand on it. But sometimes they're old, sometimes the patents no longer hold. And that's when you can get generics, right? Off-brands. They are a lot cheaper, maybe sometimes 10 times cheaper as the branded ones, and they work just as well. This is an overview of which areas in the UK still use the branded ones, right? Where actually, by using generics, the governments could save hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. So this is greater efficiency. And this is something that citizens found out. The data was there in government, but they didn't know. They didn't know what to look for. Right? So what's preventing them? What's preventing government from just embracing all of this? Okay? And really, if you walk up to your government official and he says, well, you know, that's just simply not how we do things around here. It's an opportunity for you, right? It's an opportunity to find out what the constraints are. What are the conditions that government operates under? Really, truly, when I started out here, I had no idea what the issues were. And I think, even now today, I think, like, what we've learned in Hong Kong might not be a universal playbook for everyone. But there's two things that bother Hong Kong government. Okay? There isn't a culture of risk-taking. Right? Government officials, they're not rewarded for taking well-calculated risks. Right? So if you want open data to be successful, you need to have support from a high-level official. Right? You can't just trust on the mid-ranking ones. We're guilty too. It's not just the government after all. Okay? Civil society and our brand of journalism is based on the gotcha. Right? You make a mistake. I gotcha. Right? You make a very simple slip up. I put it on the front page. I sell more newspapers. You look bad. I look great. More newspapers sold. Right? And this is something that as open data advocates, we have to be very careful about. You know, we have to convince and persuade the government officials that when they slip up, when they make a small mistake in their data sets, you know, we're going to be tolerant of mistakes. Just as they should be risk tolerant, we should be tolerant of their mistakes. Right? Because if they start feeling comfortable with releasing data sets and that they know that they will be judged across the board, not just on a single instance, this is when they will start to really release more interesting data sets. Because this is Hong Kong today. The data sets that we have are somewhat superficial, right? They're of the type of adding economic value. They're data sets of convenience. Almost none of them are about government performance, right? We cannot really measure, we cannot track. We cannot improve government by the data sets, with the data sets that we have today, right? So our government will claim that they are open, right? That they're transparent. Because they have an open data portal, they have to be open, they have to be transparent. But if we stop here, right? If we stop and say, your mission is successful, then I think we have not only failed ourselves, but we've failed our governments as well to explain to them what the true value of open data is. I'll just wrap up here and tell you how you can help. I've heard that there are 166 cities represented in Asia. That means that there's over 200 governments in Asia that could benefit, that have a chance of hearing about open data and hearing about what the benefits are, what the benefits it could bring them, right? First thing you can do is bringing the Open Knowledge Foundation to your hometown. Look at openknowledge.org/local. Look if there's already a local initiative. Find the ambassadors. And if there's one, you can start carrying the banner for your city. Second, find your government champion. So if you have started your local chapter, engage with government. You'll find that they're not a black box. Okay? They're humans too. They have dreams, they have aspirations, and some of them are just waiting for the opportunity to grasp. Open data can be a career-defining move for some of them. If you explain to them how this works, right? If you take examples from abroad and show it to them, some of them will take the risk. Some of them will be your champions in government, right? And finally, share your knowledge, right? Open data is really a novelty in Asia. Gov.Taiwan, wow, they're really ahead of the curve. But the rest of us, we're kind of lagging behind, right? But it just means that we have a lot of opportunities to engage with government and a lot of opportunities to help them to get there, okay? So if we collectively, if we share our insights, if we pool our knowledge, then we can truly draw on the open data commons for the whole of Asia. Thank you very much.